Hello, welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the match preview. Newcastle are travelling over to France to face PSG in the Champions League. It's a big game as Newcastle look to progress through to the next stage of Europe's Elite Cup competition. It's a pleasure to welcome back John Gibson to the podcast. John, we're speaking a day after Newcastle's 2-0 defeat to Aston Villa, so we'll get that out of the way first. How are you feeling about it?
Well, I remember you asking me the question, Andrew, when we were on last time. Have Newcastle turned the corner after PSV? Oh, we turned the corner all right, and we went straight down yet another cul-de-sac, didn't we? We were hoping we could avoid it against Villa because of the 6 out of 7 away games to follow, but we decided to do it early. And didn't we do it early? We had also been talking about how the Premier League is a much tougher competition than the Champions League until you get to the big sides. Well, we learned that in a big way. Aston Villa were far too much for us, and we have got to the big sides because we've got the European champions next. I was depressed by the way the Villa thing happened because, I mean, we were naive and they were better than us. They were much more streetwise than us. We are supposed to be the masters of the dark arts, or one time we're supposed to be. They're the masters. They did it totally to their advantage. They sucked us in and hit us on the counter with a very wily manager. And they're often compared, and I compare them, I think other people do as well, as Aston Villa and Newcastle on the same page, if you know what I mean, starting from the same restrictions, etc., with financial fair play. They're now 13 points ahead of us in the table, and I think that tells you an awful lot about the progress they've made. And yes, we've made progress. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But outside of winning a trophy, which they have not yet won, and they may win a trophy this season, they could win the FA Cup, heaven forbid, because you know who they'd have to beat to make certain to win that. But they could win a trophy. Outside of that, I think they have made more significant steps than we have so far, and I think that's a harsh fact, but I think we've got to face it.
Yeah, I think we have to. And it's all maybe about the bigger picture. We're trying to look in a positive light, but that defeat to Aston Villa certainly has hurt. And I guess, John, we often ask the question, we've done it loads of times this season, about the impact on the next game. You know, how did Newcastle pick themselves up after a poor performance, a poor result, or there's a good performance and a good result, they'll go in with a bounce in their step. I kind of feel like we're at the stage where maybe we've got to stop asking that question, and we've just got to accept that we're just on a roller coaster, and we're going to go up and we're going to go down, or as you say, we're on a seesaw, and we've got to stop thinking about the impact from the previous game, because I mean, is there such a thing when the results are so inconsistent?
Well, yeah, that makes you wonder about Newcastle, doesn't it? Because I'm talking about when we're on a high, when we've had a great result like we had against PSV. Although both of us said PSV aren't any great shakes in the way they offer you chances, etc. So let's not get too carried away. But yeah, I mean, when it comes back to the league, and we're here to talk about Paris, but when it comes back to the league at the weekend, our last 2 results in the league have been consistent. They've been horrible against Wolves and horrible against Aston Villa. And that's, if we have any consistency, it tends to veer onto that side rather than the other side. But yeah, we've got to stop answering that, because mostly we don't know which Newcastle are going to turn up, Andrew. And we really don't. And I'm not certain they know. What alarms me a lot more, my friend, is that I think we are one-dimensional. If plan A doesn't work, there isn't a plan B. If we don't get it right from the start, if it's not producing the correct response, like we get ahead or whatever, then we don't change things very well. We tend to be very predictable in our football, and that worries me, because the clever teams can mix it up a little bit. For example, and I know I bang on about it, but I'm just so anxious, and being a Geordie, I'm so desperate for Newcastle to be successful. We never try mid-match when things aren't working for us. Do we ever try putting Voldemort in 10 and we up top and change the way we play? No, We have like for like, 4-3-3, 4-3-3, 4-3-3. Let's mix it up a little bit, Andrew. I mean, it's not going to get any worse. If we'd mixed it up at 1-0 down, the worst that could have happened would be losing 2-0, and we did that anyway.
I mean, it's quite interesting the fact that Wissa started against Villa. I mean, again, everyone fit and firing would be my pick in this formation, and we're not going to go over old ground in terms of pleading for a system change because it's just not going to happen. But I did think it was quite interesting that he picked Wissa over Voldemare when really Wissa would be better suited to what Wednesday is going to bring and the challenge of PSG. And if you're picking players based on how many minutes they can get and they can't play 3 games in a week or what have you, then my priority, if I was in charge, would have been saving Wissa's legs for Wednesday.
Yeah, I can follow that reasoning 100%. It may seem that I'm being very, very cruel, Andrew, and maybe I am, but I just think I'm being realistic. I mean, we haven't got either of our centre forwards that are up to what we require because we say we're grateful for Monty. We talk about him. We say, isn't it good because he goes beyond the last man? He stretches them. They can't squeeze up on us, etc., etc. He plays the way this team is set up to be played. Maybe he does, but is he 55 million? I think his first touch isn't great and his vision isn't great. I love him because he cares, because he'll run all day, because he's got the smile of an angel, because we want him to be successful. But I mean, if I then put my Newcastle United hat on that I've had on for 60 years, just covering him, never mind supporting him, and I look at him and I look at the centre forwards I watched when I watched Jackie Milburn, and when I watched Supermac, and when I watched Shearer, and when I watched Ferdinand and Cole and Len White, and I mean, when I watched Isaac, dare I say it, and I don't like to say it, but 25 and 27 goals his last 2 seasons, he's not that. And I'm not suggesting that we thought he was, but we did spend 124 million of the 125 million we got for Isaac on these 2 boys. And neither of them, for me, cut the mustard when they're on their own. They're nowhere near that class. And I include Wissa in that. And by Jove, do I want them to be. And by Jove, do I want Big Nick to be. Because you know what? They're lovely lads. They are lovely lads. But Cliff Richard's a lovely lad, but I don't want him to play centre forward for Newcastle. I'm looking for something that's a bit extra, and I think we've got to learn to live with what we've got and accept they are not. Because I was watching Wissa, and he frustrated me sometimes. Yes, he was isolated. Yes, does he get the service? All the excuses that you can give for a centre forward that's not doing it, we're able to give with some justification. But the bottom line is he is not that class. He is not in that class. And when you've just lost one that was, then the comparisons are harsh, Andrew. And I know we don't really want to make them, none of us, Geordies, because we so despise the way he's left us that it's tarnished everything when we talk about what he does. But if we forget about the way he was off the field and remember the way he was on the field, and it was only last season, then we're well short, mate.
Yeah, the striker issue is certainly one that we hope can be remedied sooner rather than later. Perfect to see it on Wednesday clicking into place. And I think, John, it's going to be interesting about Wednesday is that actually it might be a game that suits Newcastle United's style. And again, that's why I would like to see Wissa start, but I don't think he will. I think he's started too many games, given that he's not match fit. But you look at PSG's last result in Europe, 2-1 defeat to Sporting Lisbon. They had 70% possession. They had 28 shots. So if we just ignore the fact that they were quite threatening going forward without scoring a boatload of goals, and we concentrate on the fact that they want the majority of the ball. I mean, and this was away from home as well, by the way. Obviously we're in Paris on Wednesday. Let's see what Newcastle United could do, because I think that's their best chance. And we know how good PSG are. They've got the best striker in the world playing up top. He won the Ballon d'Or and all of that. We get it, but Newcastle United away from home, having 35% possession, might just play into their hands because they can hopefully absorb any pressure and hit PSG on the counter.
Well, yes, you put a very good case for the defence, or for the defence of the side we love. Yes. The only trouble with that is, for that to be successful, when we create chances, we've got to take them. And when they attack us, we've got to keep the ball out the net. And we ain't too good at either of those things at the moment, Andrew. That's the only hole I can see in the bucket. There's two huge holes. When we make chances, we don't take them. And when we have pressure on us, we don't keep a clean sheet. We revert it back to nature against Villa. And this side is theoretically better than Villa. They're the European champions. I tell you what they are, Andrew. They're better than the side we beat 2 years ago, 4-1, and we got a 1-1 there, and it took a 98th minute unjust penalty for them to get that. But they were prima donnas. They had Magpies. I watched Magpies up there because I love watching superheroes. I love watching the greats of the world. And I tell you what, he never broke sweat. He was looking to get away at that stage, as we well know. And one of the ways to get away is that you don't turn up rip-roaring performances every week. Did we notice that with Isaac towards the end of last season? Oh, yes, I think we did. Well, Magpies was like that for me in that game. And while they had a lot of big names in that game, they were prima donnas. They tripped over their own pet lips as well as tackles. And that's not the side we're going to meet this side. They got rid of all the prima donnas. They've got vibrant young players in, and they're a much better side. It's going to be a tough ask. By the way, the two holes in the bucket, like we don't score goals and we don't keep them out. There's a third hole in the bucket, which I forgot about. Oh, we're away from home. We don't win too many of those.
Yes, but, when Newcastle United need to win, we can often say they do step up and against the bigger sides. I know that hasn't happened too often. Well, I'm trying to be positive, John. I'm trying to paint a positive picture.
I'm trying to be realistic, which perhaps none of us want to be, but I'm trying to be realistic. When we do want to step up, do we step up? When we played Man City at home in the semi-final of the Cup, did we step up? I mean, let's be truthful about Newcastle, but let's say that where there's life, there's hope. And if these are big players, and they think they're big players, and we used to think they were big players, let's go out and see them do it on the big stage, because we need to win this. And the unfortunate thing is they do as well, to qualify automatically. The safety net we've got are the playoffs, and isn't that wonderful? And by the way, there's a fourth hole possibly in the bottom of the bucket. I haven't looked. Bruno mightn't play. And when Bruno doesn't play, we don't win.
That's true. Okay, so it's going to be a horrible, nightmarish trip to Paris, essentially, is what John's saying, right?
Well, yes, it could. Well, if you're talking in terms of the result, are you suggesting it won't be?
Well, I'm just trying to not look at the negatives. And yes, if there's no Bruno, it's going to be difficult. No Joe Linton as well. That's going to be tough. But, and granted, you mentioned the Man City Cup game, and that was really disappointing because that is one of the fixtures, one of the clashes that we have always said Newcastle would get up for, and they didn't. And I'm, clutching at straws. But previously, last season before, when they've needed to find that extra little bit of something, they've found it. And yes, I appreciate it's a long shot, but that's what I'm clinging to. And you are right, John. They need to win this to get through to the next stage and avoid the playoffs, because we don't want any extra games. Let's just get on through. And currently they sit in a 7th position. So if it remains like that, all good. Paris are 6th on 13 points alongside Newcastle. It's unbelievable, though, the amount of teams that are on 13 points. 8 sides are on 13 points. So Newcastle, as we said, 7th. You go all the way down to Atalanta in 13th on 13 points. Then you've got Inter and Juve on 12 points, sitting 14th and 15th. So it's so congested. A point in Paris would initially be seen as a good one, but given other results over the 2 days that the competition's going on, it might not be a good result. How does that impact, John, the plan and the team talk? And I know it's very easy to say we go out to want to win every game, but let's be realistic. A point in Paris, without looking at the context, seems like a good result. But really, what you need is a win, and that's the bottom line.
Well, they may as well go out. They may as well go there with all guns blazing, because Shybane's getting out. They've got to have a go at it. We need a victory if we can possibly get one. It looks absolutely impossible on paper, but nothing's impossible in a two-horse race, and we've got to have a go for it. For me, it's almost a free hit going over to Paris, because the reason being that we make the playoffs anyway. So the worst case scenario, we're not out. When we lost it home to Manchester City 2-0, we were virtually out because we made the second leg had to be 3-0. When we go in the FA Cup, we've got to get a result at Aston Villa. Here, we can lose and still stay in Europe. And that's what I mean by a free hit. They are the best side in Europe. It's on the tin. They're the European champions. They're the best side in Europe, and we're away. And we're poor away. We never win away. So the odds are everybody, including us Geordies, bless us, are expecting Newcastle deep down inside, even if we're bravado up top and say whatever, we expect not to win there. So why not have a go? It is a free hit, because when we don't win there, if we don't win there, we're still in. Yes, we've got the 2 extra games we don't want. Hey, we should be so lucky to have the 2 extra games. We need the 2 extra games.
But, and I'm all for attacking football and leaving nothing in the tank and going for it. That's what we want from a football team. But I'm also well aware of being pragmatic and realistic as well. If Newcastle went all guns blazing and ended up losing 4-1, 4-0, would you accept that because they give it a go, or would you rather see them try and contain PSG for an hour and maybe break here or there and then lose 1-0 or 1-1, and then if that's not enough and they fall out the top 8, and then are you sitting there saying, well, come on, we should have gone for it? I mean, because there's game plan.
There's a misapprehension of when the phrase is used, all guns blazing, it means that we have 10 attackers on the field and a goalkeeper. I'm not talking about it being willy-nilly. I'm talking about it, let's not just sit on the edge of our penalty area and try to defend till the 72nd minute and then venture over the halfway line in the hope we might nick something. Let's make it more competitive than that over the hour and a half. Because if you play the way I originally said then, you get beat for certain. You get beat for certain. I mean attacking in the way that we attacked against Paris Saint-Germain at St. James's Park when we won 4-1, in the way we did when we went to the Parc des Princes last time and were 1-0 up after 98 minutes, and a dubious penalty against Tino Livramento spoiled it all. I don't mean gung-ho by all guns blazing, because gung-ho, they just pick us off. It'll be by half a dozen. But what I mean is going out front foot. If we try to kill, this team's too good to sit on the edge of our penalty box for an hour and a half and come away with a 0-0, or try in the last 10 minutes to nick a goal and win 1-0. By all guns blazing, I mean, don't leave anything in the tank. Put it all out there. But of course, don't do it stupidly. By the way, PSV did it stupidly. They're used with going gung-ho and attacking teams in their league because their league's nothing like the Premier League. And they tried to do it against us, and didn't we pick them off, and didn't we fluster them into mistakes, and didn't they pay a huge price for it? Don't do it the way they do it, but all's gun blazing mean front foot. Let's have a go at them. Let's be organised. Let's do it. The concern for me over that, Andrew, it'll be the team sheet. The team sheet is my concern. Who plays midfield? I mean, our normal midfield is Bruno, Tonali and Joe Linton. We ended up against Aston Villa with Miley, Ramsey and Willock across the midfield. Now, if that midfield plays there, we're in trouble, aren't we?
We are indeed.
Let's start with that midfield.
Yeah. I think the other issue with that is Kieran Trippier, again, tried his best on Sunday, but he looked like what he is, a defender near in the edge of his time. And I think in an ideal world, he wouldn't be starting on Wednesday. And okay, an ideal world would mean you'd have Tiernan Livramento or another right back, Emil Kraft, whatever, but you don't. So you look at the next level down, and that would be Lewis Miley to slot in at right back, as he did so well before Trippier returned.
He can't, because I'm certain that Bruno and or Joe Linton, in my worst scenario, is that I think both could miss the game. And therefore, Miley has got to play in midfield with Tonali. And then it's who else would it be? And I would have Ramsey ahead of Willock.
No, that was the point I was making, that the injuries have come at such the wrong time that in fact, the first choice right back for many in the current predicament would be Lewis Miley.
Yes.
He's gone with Kieran Trippier. Okay. But on Wednesday, I would be playing Lewis Miley if Bruno and Joe Linton were fit, but they're not. So he has to play Lewis Miley in the position that he's most natural in. And we'd, on any other given day, would be like, well, hey, but it's come out of a bad situation. It's chaotic. It's unwanted. But again, this is football, and this is the hand you dealt with. So you got to deal with it. But Kieran Trippier starts on Wednesday, which he's likely to do. I think Newcastle are really going to struggle. Nothing against his effort and commitment and clear ability, but he is nearing the end of his time.
He's hugely one pace now, Andrew, isn't he?
Yeah, and also in the mind, he doesn't look as quick as wanting to get that ball down the flanks. Centre back wise, it'll be Botman and Shaw, Hall at left back. In the middle, we think Bruno and Joe Linton will be missing. I think we can probably say Joe Linton most certainly. Eddie Howe was saying he was going to do the best to try and get Bruno up and ready. But let's say both of them are missing, then it will have to be Tonali, Miley, and I agree with you, Ramsey ahead of Joe Willock. Then on the flanks, I hate to say it because I think he deserves to be dropped, not rested, dropped. But because it is in the Champions League, I'm going to play Anthony Gordon as much as I don't think he deserves it. It's just the Champions League, and it seems to be his cup of tea. Harvey Barnes on the other flank with, again, it would be Wissa for me, but I don't think it will be because I think he'll not have the energy in his legs. So it'll be Voldemort to play the isolated lone man up top.
Yeah, I mean, the team almost picks itself, as horrible as that is. I mean, we're looking at what was once blue chip players and we worry about them now. I quite agree with Kieran. I would want to thank him at the end of the season for everything he's done for us. He's been the absolutely heartbeat of this side along with Bruno, and has been magnificent servant for us. But he looks well past his sell-by date now, bless him, and he really does. And I still worry about Tonali, another blue chip name, who to me, he looks sad. He looks depressed. He looks not the bouncy, vibrant guy. And the Wissa situation I find intriguing. This business of he's not match fit. Well, I was talking to an ex-Newcastle player who was a very distinguished player with us, and he said he looks upon the Wissa situation the other way. He thinks that what he needs are matches to get himself match fit, and the only way he gets match fit is if you keep starting him. And he would start him for that reason and not Voldemort. He'd also start him because Voldemort looks as shorn of all sort of confidence at all. But he believes that Wissa needs to play and needs to start to get things in his leg, and he's not short now of what he's going to become. And therefore he would play him. And I think I'd go along with that thought. I would start him on Wednesday. I mean, I would, in a wonderful world, I would start him and Voldemort as a 10. But we both know that's a non-starter. But I mean, I would pick your team with Wissa starting ahead of Voldemort.
Let us know in the comments your thoughts and who you would start on Wednesday. And a reminder, this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. Do click the link in the podcast description box to get a discount on your NordVPN plan. No risk with a 30-day money-back guarantee. One subscription can be used across 10 devices. It's perfect if you're lucky enough to be traveling over to Paris and want to keep yourself safe while browsing on public Wi-Fi or catching up on all your favorite UK TV shows. So support the podcast, sign up, and keep yourself safe as well. John, before I kind of get you to maybe deliver another team talk, it seems like we're doing this every week, but every game seems like a big, massive game. So why not? just want to ask you about the transfer market, and obviously we're coming to the end of it, and I think it's clear for everyone that Newcastle could do with a couple of additions, but as time goes on and there's maybe an acceptance of that won't happen, and if it does happen, it's not going to be an instant plug in and play kind of player. Your thoughts on that, John? If it is a youngster who comes in, one for the future, or if indeed it's no one, how would you sum that up?
It's been very underwhelming. It's been very dispiriting for Newcastle United fans. Maybe dispiriting for Eddie Howe, or he appears to want to keep his powder dry for the summer. Must be dispiriting for the dressing room in their private thoughts, because they need help like there's no tomorrow. So it's been desperately underwhelming. And I know Eddie faced a barrage of questions in the press conference after the Villa match about any help up front. And he said, certainly not until the summer. That's not going to happen. And when you think about it, you know it's not going to happen, because the club spent 124 million on 2 centre forwards. They spent 55 million on Elanga just 6 months ago. Now, if they spent over 200 million on 3 forwards 6 months ago, they're not going to rush out in this window and spend some more, are they? On that exact same position that they spent all that. There's big question marks whether it was spent wisely. That's a whole different ballgame. But they ain't going to go out and get it again. We are now reduced to hoping Asula does something, because he made the bench against Villa. I mean, we had him written off, and we had him just as being young and naive and raw, and hoping we got 30 million from a German club. Now, because of the performance of our 2 centre forwards, there's people on social media that's desperate for Asula to get on the pitch and play centre forward for us. This guy that was too raw 3 months ago. I tell you what, I've said it lots of times to you, Andrew, the way to become a good player is to get injured. Because when you're not there, people always remember the good part of you and not the bad part of you, and are desperate for you to come back. But yes, we need Asula to do something. The transfer market ain't going to happen. Why? They're going to get nobody, and it's looking more and more like that. Or we're going to get a one defender in. But that's what we're talking about. And, you know, everything we always do in the transfer market, even when we want to do business, we do it the last minute, don't we? Well, last gasp. I mean, in the summer, when we made about 5 signings, none of whom, apart from Chow, have been totally accepted as 100% success. But we did them all at the last minute. And here we are at the last minute again. What a surprise. We'll be at the last minute in the summer as well. It seems the way we operate, and I don't quite know why. Because I always used to talk to Joe Harvey, and he wanted to get people in as early as you could, and did that during the summer so that they were fully part of your pre-season training and your pre-season matches to get acclimatized to the way we play and want to play. But there we go. It's been underwhelming. And could we have done with some help, but it was never going to be a centre forward. You know, it might have been a midfielder, it might have been a centre half, it might have been sorting the goalkeeping situation out. But with Ramsdale there, again, that was going to wait till the summer.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they might surprise us, but I'm not holding my breath on that. Right. Well, I said we're going to get you a team talk, and it's not really going to be a team talk to get the players buoyed up, because they should need no motivation for that. As I said earlier in the show, I feel like the way PSG play, John, it could be perfect for Newcastle United. Take out all the negatives about the away form and people missing and all of that. I get it. But let them step up. Let PSG have the ball and let Newcastle United counter at their flowing best. Fingers crossed my blind faith pays off. What I want to get you to finish on, John, is the fact, and I hate doing this all the time, but I'm going to do it now because you mentioned it there. You know, Newcastle United, even if they get beat on Wednesday, will be in the playoffs and they'll have a chance to get through to the knockout. Brilliant. What we would have given for that at any stage during the Mike Ashley years, you know, we would have given anything for that. Is it a case that we've come on this journey and, you know, despite what we perceive to be doom and gloom in certain areas, and it's not been a brilliant season so far, you know, we've got to just take a little bit of a reflection about where Newcastle United are at this moment in time. They're in the right position in the table to qualify and go straight through the knockout round. You go to PSG having beaten them once and held them, and they should have beaten them the last time out. Yes, a different side, but let's just think about where we were, where we are, and what could be if they turn up on Wednesday.
Yes, we must always be grateful, because I remember as well as you do where we were under Ashley. I also remember, because I'm a downside older than you, my friend. I remember the years going back all the way back to 1969, when in that was, yes, we made a couple of cup finals, but we didn't win them, etc., etc. We have had a horrid time. A torrid time, and we've got to be grateful, and I will be grateful eternally for that cup being won last season, because it meant it's a treasure to me, and it will remain a treasure until my dying day, because we did it and it was wonderful. But we can't live on gratitude all the time. We want to keep going forward, like Aston Villa are going forward, etc., etc. And we're close to that. We haven't had a disaster season, but we haven't had a good one. What I would say to the players if I was Eddie, and this isn't a dressing room talk, but I would remind them that the next couple of weeks or so is going to define everything. Because on the plus side, we can make the Champions League automatically, or we can make it through winning the playoffs. But we can be in the next stage, the knockout stage. That's then terrific. But let's do that. If we lose to Paris Saint-Germain, I think fans will understand. They will almost expect it. But they would expect us to win the playoffs, because it's two-legged. And as we found out when we played Bilbao and Benfica and PSV, the other sides aren't great. If you take the creme de la creme out, and by the way, most of the creme de la creme in the Champions League are from the Premier League. You can only add Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain, and perhaps by reputation, Real Madrid and Barcelona. But really, the creme de la creme's us. But if you take that out, we should face a side in the playoffs, if we have to go to the playoffs, that is beatable, and we will be expected to beat that. Now let us do it, because do we want the rug pulled out totally from beneath our feet for the rest of the season? Because if we are going to go to Wembley in the Carabao Cup final, we've all got to produce a miracle down at Manchester City. If we're going to stay in the FA Cup with a chance of going to Wembley in that, which would be sensational, we've got to beat a side that beat us easy up here. We've got to beat them at their place. And Aston Villa have got 2 hours and penalty kicks if necessary to do it in. So it's going to be tough. So we could be out of those 2 cups. Pray that we're not, but it's possible. The odds are against us in both those cups. So let's make this count. Let's have a go at Paris Saint-Germain, because Shy-Ben's getting out, my famous phrase. Now, always remember, and you guys won't because you're far too young, Devin Locke goes into the Grand National, runs round the course twice, 36 jumps, etc., is a mile in front. On the home straight, suddenly decides to collapse 4 legs onto its belly and gets beaten. Well, let's hope that Paris Saint-Germain do the equivalent of that on Wednesday night. In a 2-horse race, you don't know. We score an OG, or they let in an OG in the first 10 minutes, and then they get a bloke sent off, and all of a sudden it's a whole different ball game. And who's to say that won't happen? It almost certainly won't, but who's to say it can't? So let's save the season, whether it's in Paris or whether it's through the playoffs. Let's save the season, and let's not produce a tame. Having had the Wolves performance, having had the Aston Villa result, don't produce a tame surrender in Paris. As how do we go to Liverpool, in what sort of frame of mind to resume Premier League on the weekend? So there's a lot at stake for us. At stake for us, and everybody that plays for us at the moment should know how heroes are made, because the ones that were involved in the cup final last season have got hero status. Let them not see that tarnished, and let the newer ones come and have a slice of glory themselves. Not just the Paris Saint-Germain match, but beyond it. We've got 6 games out of 7 away now. That is Beaches Brook jumping it twice. Let's make a fist of it, eh? Let's make a fist of it. Let's have some pride in ourselves and make a fist of it.
Well, on that, the key and final question.
Yes. What's the result going to be?
Yes. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, because it's not going to change. And I think we'll lose. I can't see a way that we're not going to lose. I hope all the things you hope, that, you know, we somehow we counter-attack them and we score when we have our chances and we keep them out when they have their chances. I hope all that. I hope the whole lot. But I've got to be realistic, especially after it was tough before Aston Villa. But I mean, that reminded me how tough it really is when we were taken apart by them. I think we will lose, I hope with dignity, and I hope with heads held high, and I hope with a performance that gives us some encouragement for Liverpool and for the playoffs. But I think we'll lose, but I still think we can qualify through the playoffs. Whether we want, I tell you what, by the final whistle at Paris Saint-Germain, Eddie, he'll be wanting 2 extra games, because it'll be the only way he stays in the Champions League is by having them, if the result has been wrong. And I think the sort of opposition we can be playing in the playoffs, we can get through the playoffs and remain in the competition. And that's my belief, that we'll lose in Paris, but we'll still make the knockouts.
You're sitting down, aren't you? You're nice and comfortable.
Yes? Well, because you're going to take us to win.
I am.
Well, I tell you what, I hope you go and have a lie down in a darkened room with a wet flannel over your forehead at the end of this, because, and I hope you then will talk to me on Thursday morning and explain everything to me. I hope with all my heart you're right. I can't believe what you're saying.
I just think there's something within me that just says they're going to get a really scrappy win in Paris, whether it's 1-0, 2-1. I can just see the way Sporting beat them playing out. And I know Sporting were at home and we know how bad Newcastle are away and all of that. But I just think Newcastle do step up when required. And yes, it hasn't happened enough this season, hasn't happened in the games that they tend to, but something just tells me that they're going to do it on Wednesday, and it won't be pretty. It's going to be edge of your seat. It's going to be watching behind your hands, but I think they're going to do it. It's going to be narrow. I'm going to go for a 1-0 win, and I think Nick Pope's goal will be charmed. I think the woodwork will be hit a dozen times, and Nick Pope will put off a couple of cracking saves, and there might be a goal ruled out for offside and what have you. But I just think Newcastle are going to do it, and it won't be a performance, John, that we look at and say, oh, well, they'll be brilliant against Liverpool and all of that. But it will be a win that secures their place in the next stage.
I think what you're suffering from, and I hope you're right, is 2 words. The first one's blind and the other one's faith. Blind faith, because it's not built on logic. Because if you did it on logic, we would still be here when they were kicking off for you to explain why it will happen. I don't think there's much chance whatsoever of that happening. But I half hope I'm wrong, and I half hope you're right. But I tell you what, I'm off going to look forward to speaking to you Thursday morning, my friend.
Yes, and we will speak on Thursday morning because we are going to preview the next game in the top flight for Newcastle. Hopefully it is on the back of a win over in Paris, as unlikely that does seem. Big thanks to John for popping on and providing the match preview into Paris PSG. Do head over to chroniclelive.co.uk for all the latest Newcastle United news. And for myself and John, we'll see you guys later in the week.